I am Isham Blake, Fifer and bodyguard to General Marquis de Lafayette, America's most famous Revolutionary War hero, who left his homeland of France at the age of 20 to come to America to fight for America's freedom. I was not yet 16 when British General Cornwallis surrendered to George Washington at Yorktown, but I was right there in the last battle of the American Revolution in the role of fifer. For those of you who might not know what a fifer is, my role in the battle was to play the fife, which is like a flute, accompany the drums, providing cadence and signals to the armies during changes in formation. I began playing the fife at an early age, and by 11, I was on the battlefield at Brandywine, and I knew General Marquis de Lafayette well. I admired the rich young nobleman who had come to America to fight for this country's freedom. He had been promised a command of his own, but first was required to serve as a volunteer, without pay and without command. He was wounded at the Battle of Brandywine, his first battle, but because of his bravery was placed in charge of a division. That is where my good fortune began. In 1779, Lafayette returned from a mission to France on behalf of the Continental Congress and was given a command of the Army of Virginia, and I became his fifer. I was with him when he joined Washington's army to confront the British under Cornwallis at Yorktown, and I witnessed the surrender of the British troops on October 19, 1781. General Lafayette and I were closest of friends, and it was my odd habit of whistling that would often cheer him in the darkest of days. I can't begin to tell you how sad I was to say goodbye to him when the battle was over and America's victory secured. He returned to France, and I began a new life here in America. After Yorktown, I returned to Southampton, Virginia, and married Mary Macy Clifton, who is buried beside me here in Cross Creek. Mary and I chose Cumberland County as our new home, partly because Fayetteville was named after my dear friend Lafayette. Life was good, and Mary and I spent our days raising our family of 8 children. I entered into life in Fayetteville and soon became a Mason, a member of the Fayetteville Independent Light Infantry, and a charter member of Hay Street Methodist Church, where I was an active member serving as a steward, secretary, and trustee. In 1825, General Lafayette returned to the U.S. as the nation's guest, and cities and towns all over the United States vied with each other in honoring the beloved hero. He was escorted from the Virginia line through various towns in North Carolina to the Clarendon Bridge in Fayetteville by Colonel Thomas G. Polk and his Mecklenburg Cavalry. At the bridge, the FILI took over, along with several other companies, and escorted the entourage into the city. I was invited to share in this very special honor during the General's entire visit. It was not an easy assignment, as there had been many heavy rains during the previous days, which had continued during the General's arrival on March the 4th. The soldiers had to march through the mud and water halfway up their knees. The parade proceeded to Town Hall, later known as the Market House, where Judge Toomer welcomed the General on behalf of the town. Lafayette responded warmly to the crowds of people swarming around Town Hall, and in spite of the heavy rains. The General was then escorted to his headquarters, which had been provided by Duncan McCrae in his own home. That night, the General was honored with an elegant dinner and a grand ball in the new Lafayette Hotel with about 400 in attendance. The next morning was nice and sunny as the FILI passed in review for the General. During the more informal hour, I made my way into the home and sent word to the General that one of his old soldiers would like a word with him. When I was presented to the General, we fell on each other's neck, and tears flowed from both of our eyes. It was such an emotional time for both of us. The famous General and the fifer who had cheered him at Yorktown. We forgot all about the other guests present and sat down to reminisce about our battles together for freedom. When it was finally time to depart, Lafayette asked that I whistle a tune for him for old time's sake. I gave him my all as my parting gift, knowing that our paths would likely never cross again. He was America's hero, but he was my hero as well.